Imagine you're flying over the vast white emptiness of Greenland. From above, it looks pristine, maybe even timeless. But deep beneath that surface, a secret that's been buried for decades is threatening to come back to the surface. So, what in the world is really hiding under all that ice? Okay, so picture this. It's 2024, and a team of NASA scientists are on what's supposed to be a pretty routine mission. They're using this powerful new radar to map the ice, trying to see all the way down to the bedrock, miles below. They were expecting to see, rock. But then, something totally impossible pops up on their screens. Not the jagged, natural lines of bedrock they were looking for, but a perfect grid. Impossibly straight, parallel lines buried 100 feet down. As one scientist put it, they were just stunned. What they had accidentally stumbled upon was a ghost city, frozen in time. This wild discovery basically ripped open a chapter of the Cold War that pretty much everyone thought was permanently frozen over. So what exactly did they find down there? And here's where it gets really interesting. This wasn't some ancient lost civilization. Nope. This was something far more modern and, as it turns out, a whole lot more dangerous. What they found was Camp Century, a sprawling, top-secret U.S. military base built way back in 1959. Publicly, it was billed as this amazing scientific research station, a real marvel of Arctic engineering. But that was just a cover story. The base's real purpose was a mission with a super chilling codename, Project Iceworm. The plan was to carve out this massive network of tunnels to hide and launch hundreds of nuclear missiles, all aimed at the Soviet Union. And get this, they never even told Denmark, who actually has sovereignty over Greenland, what they were really up to. Well, Camp Century's life was pretty short. By 1967, Army scientists realized the ice sheet was moving and shifting way too much to be a stable platform for missiles. So they removed the nuclear reactor, but they left almost everything else behind, just assuming it would be entombed in ice forever. And that one assumption, that forever freeze, that is exactly where our story takes a sharp and, frankly, an alarming turn. Because it turns out, forever is a lot shorter than anybody expected. You see, the belief back then was that the base was in a permanent frozen tomb. But the reality today, which you can see right here in this NASA data, is that Greenland is just shedding ice at an unbelievable rate. The stable frozen world that base was built in, it just doesn't exist anymore. So, it all comes down to this one critical miscalculation. What was thought to be a permanent tomb is now threatening to become an open grave, unlocked by our warming climate. And listen, this isn't just about some old buildings. When the base was abandoned, a huge amount of toxic waste was just left there. We're talking massive quantities of diesel fuel, raw sewage, cancer-causing PCBs, and even some low-level radioactive waste from the reactor's coolant. Scientists are now projecting that with the way things are warming up, the ice covering Camp Century could start to melt away by the year 2090, releasing all of that concentrated toxic junk directly into the ecosystem. But to really get why this is all happening, we can't just look at the sun and the warm air. The biggest part of Greenland's story is happening deep, deep underneath the ice, driven by this totally unseen engine of melt. It's a process called basal melt. And it's exactly what it sounds like. The massive ice sheet is melting from the bottom up. But how? What could possibly be causing this hidden melting deep beneath a continent of solid ice? Well, it turns out there are three main culprits. As you can see in this chart, geothermal heat from the Earth's core and heat from surface meltwater are both big factors. But the number one driver, responsible for a whopping 51% of all basal melt, is simply friction. All right, first up is geothermal heat. If you look at this map, you can actually see where warmth from the Earth's mantle is seeping up. Those yellow and orange areas, especially up in northeast Greenland, those are geological hotspots where the bedrock is literally cooking the ice from below. Next, and this is the big one, is that frictional heat. Look at the second map. The sheer, crushing weight of the ice sheet causes glaciers to slide over the bedrock, and that movement generates an incredible amount of heat, like rubbing two giant stones together. That heat is concentrated in those fast-flowing ice streams you see marked in the darkest blue. And finally, this third map shows a really dangerous feedback loop. As the surface melts, that water pours down through these deep cracks. It carries warmth all the way to the base, which you can see in those red areas along the coast. But even more importantly, it acts like a lubricant, helping the glaciers slide even faster, which in turn generates, you guessed it, even more frictional heat. Now, the shape of the land underneath all this ice is absolutely crucial. Where the bedrock has a steep drop, what scientists call a nick point, it can act as a kind of break, stopping the thinning from spreading far inland. But where the slope is gentle, there's nothing to stop the melt from just eating away at the very heart of the ice sheet. So why does all this hidden science matter to you no matter where you live? Because what happens in Greenland definitely does not stay in Greenland. Just look at this number, 270 gigatons. According to NASA, that is the average amount of ice Greenland is losing every single year. And all of that water has to go somewhere. Right now, that translates to about 0.8 millimeters of global sea level rise per year. It might sound small, but it adds up relentlessly. And the total potential, it's just staggering. If all of Greenland's ice were to melt, global sea levels would rise by more than 7 meters or 23 feet. That kind of change would literally redraw the maps of our world. It puts coastal megacities at extreme risk, it threatens global economies, and it would displace billions of people. This isn't some distant, abstract problem. It is a direct threat to our shared future. The story of Camp Century is a powerful warning. It shows how yesterday's secrets can become tomorrow's crises. The Cold War may be over, but its toxic legacy is just waiting for a thaw. And it leaves us with a pretty critical question. What other forgotten risks are we waking up?